This podcast is brought to you by the patrons at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Just a couple of dollars a month goes a long way to helping the network, grow the network, let us add new shows, let us do cool new things. Go check it out, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thanks, and enjoy the episode.
Together.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where extremely sick people talk about the X-Men. So just want to...
I've got the hantavirus.
And I just have throat grunk. So I'm sorry that my voice sounds super sexy
throat
today. Yeah, I have legacy throat.
Yeah, legacy throat sounds like a designer fleshlight. Like they brought back the legacy throat from like from the vault, like the Disney vault.
But Gambit's on the cover, so you know it's good, share.
This patterned after my Cherie. Gambit do the playtest.
That's probably our quickest time to Gambit impression on a podcast yet, Gary. Congratulations.
I never heard that. I don't know why the phrase legacy throat is tickling me. Like I know I said throat. It, so it's uncouth for me to think it's so funny, but like I don't know.
Oh man, it is that's just sounds great. We're here back. We're covering season 3. This is the first time that our episode numbering is going to get super duper weird. So yes. Before you listen to this, you probably need to go take a look at daysoffuturecast.com/schedule because the DVD order, if you're watching at home, is incorrect. So some of the episodes that we're talking about today, for instance, the first episode, No Mutants Island, is actually on the 5th volume of the DVD, what was originally meant to be aired during the 3rd season. So yes. we've pulled that from the original creators of the show, and I've checked it out with a couple of other people that are really, really into these kind of facts and confirm that we're doing it right. So today we'll be doing No Mutants Island, as I mentioned, and also Obsession, which I'm pretty excited to talk about because both of these episodes are pretty good. If not good, then kind of ridiculous.
I'm looking forward to season 5 because I was looking up stuff about it, and my understanding is that like season 5 is kind of this weird clearinghouse for like a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of kind of stuff that didn't make it. There's like some weird season 4 stuff in there. Like it's season 5 just became this like junk drawer of X-Men stuff. So I imagine it's just like real bonkers. And I've seen some of the stuff that they actually deal with in there, and it is bonkers. There's like that's where Caveman Wolverine comes from. So de-evolved Wolverine. I'm looking forward to that. This makes, out of all the episodes they could shunt to season 5, this one makes the least sense. Like this takes place exactly after the last episode.
I mean, it's if you go on Amazon and you look at the reviews of the DVD, that's one of the common complaints. Is like, wait, I was watching this, and then there's an episode that's all about Jean Grey, but that was solved like two DVDs ago.
Yeah, did she die off camera? Like it just like, did she die between the episode of like because the last episode before this on season 5 I think is Omega Red. So it's like, and she's not really in it. So it's like Omega Red killed her before the episode started. And then now everyone's doing her funeral because, but then she comes back the next episode. Like it's ridiculous.
I don't really remember dealing with this too much as a kid, right? Like I just don't really even remember doing it. But I'm sure if you were trying to keep up with this now, it's just a nightmare. Like what? This is in no order whatsoever. So,
well, and as a kid, I never watched season 5. So this is the exciting thing. I watched season 3. I was looking through season 4. I don't think I watched those either. So like, this is the first episode we're doing for the show that I did not watch as a kid. And next season is going to be all episodes I didn't watch as a kid, which is kind of exciting. Like there's a bunch of new X-Men to me.
I was looking at the air dates, and like season 4 and 5 are both 95 and 96, which would have been about the time that I thought comic books were way too cool.
I was way more into pussy. Like it just
I was way more into chicks. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, like put down your comic books, Gramps. It's time for me to go diving.
Got to get rid of all of this stuff. Yeah, because I've got a redhead coming over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, I was still reading comics then, but it was more like adult comics, like. No, it wasn't. It was still just X-Men. But I wasn't watching cartoons. For some reason, that was the difference. Like, I was like, I'm going to read the Generation X comic, but like, I'm not going to watch a Saturday morning cartoon. That's too kiddie.
And there was somebody in the Slack, I believe it was Fletch, aka Surge, that dropped us a link to show us the differences with the original version that aired of No Mutant is an Island versus the version that because they aired this version and they kept sending it back to the animation house to get it redone because it was so fucking terrible. And it's a pretty stark difference in the two, like in their side by side screenshots and things, and it's dramatically different. I'll drop that in the show notes so people can check it out just to get an example of what they were dealing with back then. It sounds like they had just a whole ton of production problems.
Yeah, and it does look way worse. Those screenshot comparisons are kind of frustrating to me though, because it also looks like if you took like an HD TV and like a CRT, like the shitty ones kind of look like they're just like snapshots of a CRT TV to me. You know,
yeah, it definitely looks like it's being ripped from a VCR. Like that's that resolution quality. But like, there's some like just in the very first one, I don't know if you're looking at it or not, but like Beast muscles in the old version just are like his knee has a muscle like on top of it. And I don't know what your legs look like. I'm not trying to take away anybody's knee muscles here, but like most humans don't have knee muscles, right? Like they don't have knees. You don't? Okay, sure.
Yes.
Sure. Get right to it.
Yeah, Gary Goose-Step. That's the.
You're gonna be like our friend Taki from this episode.
Oh boy, if you didn't think the X-Terminators got a cameo in the X-Men animated series, you were wrong. I mean, it does look worse other than just the quality. I just feel like if it wasn't a VCR rip, it would
hold up a little better. Yeah,
it'd be easier to see the difference. Mm-hmm. Let's get into it. No Mutant is an Island. And this original air date, doesn't matter. Season 5, it's all over the place.
Yep.
So still reeling from the traumatic events of the Phoenix Saga and Jean Grey's sacrifice, Cyclops quits the X-Men and travels back to the orphanage from where he was adopted as a child. While there, Cyclops befriends some young mutants to help them free them from the evil clutches of the Purple Man. Spoiler. Rejuvenated, Cyclops returns to the X-Men and to miraculous news.
So I didn't actually read this description. I just kind of jumped right into it and just started watching the episode. So when they started talking about Kilgrave, I was like, man, I don't remember Kilgrave being an X-Men villain as a kid. Like, because
he's super not.
Purple. It's such a weird. He's always been like an Avengers guy or like a Daredevil, Jessica Jones, or recently a Jessica Jones guy. Like, it's so weird to see him pitted up against like this. And to have like this world domination plot is so bizarre.
I kind of dig it. Like when Cyclops leaves the X-Men, though, he deals with non-X-Men villains. So it's like he's in a different part of the country. Like this is just where the Purple Man does his shit. He's in purple country.
How many problems do you have? Like, what level of problem with authority figures are you on that you're going back to the orphanage from which you were adopted? Like that seems like such incredible. A weird thing to do. Not the place that adopted you. Not going back to that place.
You're not your foster parents.
Not going to a new place. Literally anywhere else.
It's also pretty fucked up because for the showrunners to do this, because there's already like intrigue about the place where Scott was adopted. Like there's all this stuff about Mr. Sinister like grooming him as a kid that shows up in the comics, and I don't know if that got retconned out or if that's current. But I think that comes up later in the cartoon too. So to kind of establish Scott's adoption home as this place all tied up with Kilgrave, like does kind of make it narratively sloppy when they later have Sinister skeeving on him. There, it's just like this orphanage is just full of like supervillains watching from the corners, from hilltops nearby.
Also, like the in the universe, they kind of present mutants as relatively rare. Like, there's not just millions of them. And this one particular orphanage seems to have like 8. Like they have enough to field a team.
It's real mutiny. Like it's enough to have the Exterminators.
It's enough to be able to put together the Exterminators, which, just have some delightful. A couple of the episodes we're going to talk about today have really, really good cameo spots that I'm really enthusiastic about. This is one of them. Exterminators, I think, actually come off as pretty goofy and fairly okay in this episode.
Oh, yeah. Like, they were never that serious. They're the Exterminators. Like, they've always been, things. And, like, I love that Taki gets thrown a bone because it's, like, the guy who didn't make it onto a team. Like, this is Taki's first and last appearance in anything.
I had to go... This Taki guy, like I could not remember the Exterminators because it's been a long time, and I actually went on Wikipedia and like looked this dude up to make sure that that he actually had a wheelchair transformation power, like the show says, and he totally has a wheelchair transformation power. That's a shitty mutant power, Gary.
It's so sad too because it's like we're picking out people for X-Force. Nope. Like, we're picking out people for the new Warriors.
Nope. Sorry,
like, he just doesn't get chosen for any teams, and it's kind of sad because he's kid in a wheelchair, but he's got those transformation powers. So this episode begins with them at Jean Grey's funeral. Essentially, or like just something in her memory. Like, they're all hanging out in a field, reading some poetry. The Beast is reading.
Of course.
I found this out, man, from reading. Did you know that this is not a poem? Like, this is something Beast fucking wrote, dude.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Like, I looked it up.
Just assumed it was a poem. I didn't search it.
No.
He wrote like a funeral dirge for Jean Grey.
Yeah, Beast wrote, and it's God. Like, it says something like, "When the river goeth to the ocean, it will finally find peace," or something like that. Can you, like, why doesn't Scott Summers punch him in the fucking face for this?
Dude,
like,
Scott, and look, Scott is pretty angry from the jump. Like, when Beast finishes this, Xavier comes up and is like, "Thank you, Beast. I think that she really enjoyed poetry alive.
She loved poetry, right?"
And Cyclops is fucking out. He just like, "I'm out of here. Fuck this."
Xavier is like trying to psychologically torture him or something. It's real weird. Like, she loved poetry, didn't she, Scott?
Yeah.
Like they got into a big fight about poetry at some point when she was alive, or something. And then, like, when he's so Scott, so this is great already. That's just the fact that Beast wrote his own poetry, very good. Scott comes in and is looking at the weird stiff action figure end of the credits thing of Jean Grey slowly rotating on the hologram machine. Yeah, like, that's what he remembers her as, is like this, action figure version of her.
Weird. And like, they're gonna do this in the next 3 or 4 episodes, but since we've had like one run in with the Shi'ar, like now, like, we have all of this new technology, so like, we have fucking holograms popping up, and all of a sudden they have a robot that talks in Xavier's voice that nobody comments on at all, which I think is really, really fucking weird.
It was just like given to him in case he ever had to get like one of those throat stents.
I mean, I guess. Can you imagine going to someone's house and then like all of their Alexa devices are in their own, like, their voice? It's like Jeremy Greer talking, like, "Yes, Jeremy, right away, Jeremy."
I think that'd actually be kind of funny and awesome. That makes me want to do that. I don't know if they have programmable Alexas. Yeah, I'm
sure that they will eventually figure out how to sell a celebrity voice on there for like $8.99 or some shit, like they used to for. Remember when they were like doing that for GPS devices? Like Darth Vader would tell you to make a U-turn and shit.
Oh yeah. That's still a thing. I remember my ex had one where it wasn't a specific boy band, but her GPS was a boy band. So it was like 4 dudes in harmony singing the directions. It was pretty funny. Turn left, like U-turn. Like, it was pretty fun.
That street's back. You need to turn around.
Take a right. Ding, 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 ding. Wah, wah. It's pretty funny.
Xavier and Scott have like this big fight here, and I'll probably cut the line out.
I'm sick of the responsibility. I'm sick of being den mother to a bunch of quibbling children.
Like, he's really. Scott has had some shit building up for a while, man. He's stopped up
bad
emotionally.
He's really stopped up. And this part, one of my favorite things that happens here, and it doesn't happen, but if I could like do edits like that, is he quits the X-Men, right? So like Xavier, he's looking at a picture of his ex-wife who's dead, ex-fiance. Xavier comes in and just goes, "Yes, we're all very sad. There's a mission I'd like you to go on." Like, just goes right into business.
Yeah, and Cerebro picked up a random mutant. "I think you should lead the team," and he's like, "Fuck you, man."
Yeah, get off my dick. It's the funeral day. And then Scott throws his uniform down. It turns over to Scott getting ready to leave. If when it panned right, if Xavier was wearing Cyclops' uniform and said, "I'll lead the team," and then the episode just followed him like pretending to be Scott Summers for a day, it would make me the happiest that I've ever been in my life. Like, it's just like him just cruising around dressed up as Cyclops. I would have been very happy with that.
This is just a real missed opportunity for Morph. Like, he's really going to be sad when he learns that this happened and he didn't have a perfect opportunity to take over from Scott.
Yeah.
The one day that I'm not constantly monitoring my ex-teammates, this happens.
He's just doing his shitty one-man show down in Ecuador or whatever. But this is really amazing. So Scott quits. He goes and he gets on a train. We don't know where he's going yet, but this is I like all this stuff. This is all like kind of cinematic and like cool for a kid's cartoon. Like, we're following one character. It doesn't have the rest of the X-Men in it really, and him just kind of like going and doing this long dark night of the soul by himself. Like, it's a cool thing for a kid's cartoon to deal with.
It's just so much like, I mean, it's so Scott Summers that like he's going to go out and search his soul, and he starts at the orphanage. I can't get over this. Like, he doesn't stop by a bar. He doesn't try to go to his foster family. He doesn't think to himself, that weird dude I met in space kind of looked like me. I should probably go check that out.
Yep.
Yeah. So he gets on this train and he finds that his old friend Sarah is running this orphanage, and she was one of the few people that were friendly to him, because while he was at the orphanage, his mutant powers started kicking in. And,
is it me, or does she kind of look like Jean Grey?
I mean, he's got one type,
headed, but like she looks a lot like, if you just changed her hair to be red, I think she would look like the cartoon Jean Grey.
I think he's very specific. Maybe they're being a little nefarious there to the viewers, and making her like maybe she doesn't actually look that way, but Cyclops thinks she does, because he actually, like, they almost kiss in this episode, like fresh off the wife dying, like the fiance. He was never able to put a ring on it. They try to make out at the end.
Yeah. It's. I think it's them trying to do like their real quick version of like the Madeline Pryor, thing. Like, he's just Cyclops is always like really quick to go into someone else's arms. Like, Cyclops cannot handle being alone. Yeah,
he's definitely a relationship guy. He's one of those dudes that has to have a girlfriend at all times. So
yeah.
We hear this background chatter of this guy Kilgrave, Zebediah Kilgrave, which I did not know was Kilgrave's first name, by the way. Played to much less great effect than David Tennant played him on the recent Jessica Jones TV show. As you might imagine, David Tennant did a little bit better job with Kilgrave. But he's been like sponsoring this orphanage and paying for scholarships for all of her quote unquote special children, and like, because she has 4 or 5 mutants up in this piece, just like Scott, and she remembers Scott having like coming into his powers. We get a couple of flashbacks, and we start seeing some really inconsistent uses of Cyclops's eye beams. Like, at first, like, he shoots a tricycle, and it just moves the tricycle away a little bit. It barely hurts it.
Shoves it a little bit.
And in like 20 minutes, we're going to see him shoot the same tricycle, and it melts. So what the fuck, writers? What are you doing? What are you trying to tell me?
It's got more powerful. It's now that he's got pubes. So he's like, okay, Kilgrave seems cool. I'm gonna hang out here. Where is he gonna sleep? Like, it's just like
his old bed. I don't know. They saved it.
Yeah, like sleep in this tiny little bed with all these kids in this room or something. Like, I don't know what Scott's plan is here. But so he's also linking back to all the times he got rejected by parents. Like, they brought him back because he's a scratch and dent kid and he had mutant powers. He melted all their shit and they didn't like it. Flashbacks to Jubilee. Like, this is like kind of effective. It's funny and stupid, but like, again, this is kind of a thing that happens to mutants, right? Like, we've had 2 of our principal characters had a very similar upbringing in this respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's just sitting down having coffee with Sarah, like doing the catch-up thing, and
trying to find a new fiance, a new perma fiance.
Yeah, maybe one that won't die in a weird.
Yeah, she won't turn into a cosmic entity.
into a weird cosmic entity. Yeah. How did your last relationship end, Scott? Well, but during this, there's a fire, and so Scott runs upstairs, and he Sarah is walking up the stairs like a normal human being, but Scott jumps the banister ahead of her,
in front of her. Yeah, just this like weird little side scoot jump. It's really good. And it's not like animated terribly. It's like a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. Like, we're not in like the animation doldrums just yet, but this is just such a weird little cheat, and it's like a fraction of a second. I don't know why they do it like this. It's really very weird. Strange.
There's also when he runs up there, he opens the door to the fire, and it does that backdraft thing, and the fire like flames up, and he does a little backflip right after he opens the door. Which I actually made a gif of that. Like, I'll have that on the Twitter when this episode comes out, of him doing a little backflip and then running in, and then again, like, Cyclops concussive beams and apparently put out fires now. Like, is that a thing in the comic books? I don't ever remember that being a thing in the comic books where he can shoot fire and it goes out.
So with the best will in the world, it's like, so if it's concussive force, right? So it's pushing. That's, it does a lot of other stuff, but I think if you like read his official handbook entry, it's supposed to be concussive force. Mm-hmm. It'd be like throwing a blanket on the fire. Like, you're pushing on the fire so air can't get to it. Like the beam is there instead of oxygen, so it starves the fire.
It's just one of the 5 ways we're going to see his memes used in this episode.
It's the kind of thing, if there was like no prizes for the cartoon, I would demand a no prize for that, because it's they weren't thinking that. They just
Yeah, they were just like, okay, there's a fire, and now how is Scott going to put it out? Oh, he's not going to grab a fire extinguisher from the kitchen, which definitely is there because it's an orphanage licensed by the state of New York.
Yeah, he's just going to go zap crazy.
He's going to go zap crazy.
And he initially is super aggro with this kid. He's like, "Were you playing with matches?" Like he's such a Boy Scout about it.
Oh, we're in the era of aggro Scott Summers, by the way. He's going to hate everything in the next few episodes that we cover.
It's kind of amazing. Like this is good Scott. It's time for another segment of Great Scott, where we talk about our best Scott Summers. So he finds out that this is Rusty, who can create fire. He's like kind of an upgraded the yin to Pyro's yang. Like Pyro can control fire, Rusty can't do that. He can just create it.
Yeah, and this dude looks exactly like Rusty Venture. Like I don't want to feed any fires of the Venture brothers or anything, but man, this dude looks exactly like young Rusty Venture whenever we have flashbacks on that show. So it's really, really funny.
It's a cool cameo though, because these guys, they're a team, like as we mentioned, and they were involved in X Factor. So like there was a very different story in which like Cyclops met this kid and kind of took him under his wing, like took these kids under their wing. It's just like them working in these weird original X Factor stuff into the animated series. I think this is kind of a good way to do it.
Sure. I actually really dig like this kid situation because we're going to get there in a minute. Meanwhile, like when Scott realizes this kid is a mutant, they go on a walk together and Scott
this is really good.
Where are they at? Who knows? They're like in a shitty part of town.
Hellscape are they?
Has Apocalypse already visited this town and like this left the orphanage full of mutants there and like destroyed everything else?
Like it is. There are multiple abandoned, crumbling buildings across the street from them.
I mean,
and
this
Cyclops chooses one.
It just explodes it with his beams, dog. It's so stupid. Are they in like Detroit? Like, is that what it's supposed to be? Like, is it just burn out Detroit? Yeah, this is ridiculous. And like, he does it to show to show Rusty that he's a mutant too. Like he's one of him. They're the same basically. They're mutants.
Yeah.
And what a weird and dumb way to show off your I-beam powers. Like, go put out another fire, maybe. Like, go light something. Hey, Rusty, light that on fire, and I'm going to put it out with my I-beams. Don't just blow up an abandoned building.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anywho, so the Kilgrave shows up with the cops, which like I was like, oh, it's because he's blowing up buildings. Like that would make sense.
But Kilgrave owns all this property, right? Is what you were going.
Yeah,
with.
it's or just like you can't just blow up stuff. You're a goddamn superhero, Scott. So he shows up and he's here to collect Rusty because Rusty wasn't supposed to be there. Rusty was adopted and he ran back. And like Rusty's like, don't make me come with him. Kilgrave's a real creep and he has a torture room in his basement.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
And Sarah just doesn't believe him. She's, well, foster parents can be a little disconcerting sometimes. And Rusty's like, it's a fucking torture chamber, okay? They strap me.
Say something. Yeah.
And what an aggro move to like show up like, hey, I just adopted this kid and it ran back to the orphanage. I need 4 police cars to follow me over there to get this kid. Like, don't the cops be like, what? Why do you need 4 cop cars to do this?
Well, he's not because of the mutant, Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's real weird. And Kilgrave is so obviously a piece of shit. Like, he looks like a villain.
Oh, yeah. Immediately looks like a villain, and we see him like Rusty. He does get Rusty, and they do go back, and we see him strapping Rusty in and using his. So Kilgrave is the purple man who has basic mind control powers, can look at you and force you to do things that you wouldn't normally.
Yeah, you have to do anything he says.
Yeah,
he can tell you what to do.
Which you would think would inspire him to do more with his powers, more creative stuff. But in this, he just seems to want to win a bid on like a government contract.
I actually think the method in which he's getting this is very creative. It's too creative. He could just come over there and be like, elect me. Because that's how his powers work. He just tells people to do, but this is a very complicated plan.
I don't even know that I can. I don't know that I can explain it. There's some sort of project that he wants to win the construction of, and like
he wants that. He wants to become like run for office too, because they go and they make the governor. That's
right. They make the governor resign. Yeah.
Yeah, like with a bunch of mutants. Like a bunch of mutants storm his compound and make him resign. Like they don't kill him or kidnap him. They make him quit his job. And presumably it's so Kilgrave can get his job, because earlier they showed him campaigning, like when he was on the TV when Sarah brought him up at the orphanage. It was like he was campaigning and she's like, oh, he's a great man or something like that. So like the person they make quit is somebody who is bad mouthing him on TV. So I think he's running for office. Why somebody with mind control powers can't just like literally when somebody is running for office, they go, vote for me. like if Kilgrave does that, they have to.
Yeah.
Like all he needs to do is get out there
tell
and
him.
do a couple of public appearances, and like he's golden.
Vote for me and make your friends vote for me too. Like,
vote for me and campaign for me.
Yeah,
done. It's like literally done.
Also,
Instead of like,
why do you want to be the governor? Being a governor sucks.
It's really weird. Yeah, I have no idea why he's trying to get this like very very minor office, like this like gubernatorial scepter of power that like.
And he does. He does this like speech towards the end of like, this is the stepping stone for taking over the world and enslaving mankind. And I'm like, dude, you were like, the jump between being the governor of New York and taking over the world and subjugating mankind is like you gotta fill in some details. Like there's probably better ways to approach this. Talk to Magneto, maybe.
And we don't even know if it's New York. Like this could be, like New Jersey or something. This could be anywhere in New England.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Like it is such a baby step.
I do like the scene where Kilgrave forces these kids. He's got them like strapped in chairs and is brainwashing them, like actively brainwashing them. But he's going to use them to break into the governor to force the governor to resign. But like, it's a government building. Like, you could probably just made an appointment with the governor and they went in there with their mind control powers. Like, you're a member of the community.
Needs these specific kids. So these are all kids that are the exterminators. They show up, they become members of New Mutants and stuff. And these are kind of fun cameos, right?
Yeah.
So we got Rusty. We get Skids. Skids can create force fields.
Mm-hmm.
She does slide around on them sometimes, but that is like her primary power here. They need her to like take out the guards, so she slides past them, like
her and Boom Boom, whose power is literally Boom Boom, like that's
creating explosions. She makes cherry bombs essentially. So like, why these kids? And then what does Taki do during this intro part?
Taki distracts the guards, and then gets into he takes care of the entrance and using his wheelchair transformation powers. But that's not the moment where Taki's going to shine.
Oh yeah,
we're going to get to the moment where Taki shines.
But so that's his plan. Is he's like, all of you kids, you have a very specific role. No, you don't. Like every mutant could do every part of this job.
Yeah,
or you could have just taking out guards. Like
you could have just walked to the guards and told them to let you in, dog.
Like, hey, shoot yourself, dog.
Yeah, you do not need any young X-Men to like. This seems so overwrought. What are you doing?
So ridiculous. Like, hey, guard, quit your job. Like go. Like it's like this. A really good expression of this power is like if you read Preacher. That's what this power.
Go count sand on the beach, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm gonna say. Like go tell me how many grains of sand there are on that beach. And like just that takes care of it. That person's no longer a problem for you. He's obviously not like a good guy, because he's using these kids and the kids are doing violence. Like this being the Purple Man makes no sense. This should have been like an unpowered character who just had traditional brain power or brainwashing abilities,
like some sort of technological brainwashing ability, right? Like where it took a long time, like where he has to sit them in these devices, which is what it really feels like. Maybe the Purple
what happens.
You think there was just an animation error and they accidentally colored it purple a couple of times? So they were like, "No, we got a guy."
Makeup. Like it's the or just like they have loyalty to him because they're adopted. Like what if you did this story where they were adopted and Purple Man gives them, or the Zebediah gives them everything they want. Like they get candy and toys and all this stuff. And because they had such a shitty time in the orphanage, they're willing to do this stuff. Like you like Fagin's like Artful Dodgers, kind of thing. Like they feel indebted, so they're going to do these crimes because they didn't want to be orphans. Like this superpower angle ruins this story so bad. As much as it's cool to have this cameo, like it just makes nothing make sense.
It really does not. And he brings Rusty to this thing too, and Rusty just literally makes a firewall, like a literal wall of fire, not like a piece of equipment that's a firewall. Rusty installs a Cisco 7901 and programs it to block any kind of incoming port traffic. He makes just a literal wall of fire to block the guards out while Kilgrave goes in and tells the governor to give him the contract.
He's the governance contract. I don't know what this is. It's very weird. I think they were relying on the fact that kids just wouldn't understand how government works.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've outgrown this story.
I'm not convinced the writers know how government works. Like, no shade being thrown, but in '92, maybe they just didn't care to look it up. Like, I didn't know a lot about local government until I started having to deal with local governments a lot for my job. So,
I know almost nothing about it. Still, I just know enough. Like more than this.
You know enough to write a bad X-Men animated series episode about it.
I know enough to know this is bad. Man,
Scott and Jean start getting kind of suspicious about this Kilgrave.
Scott and Sarah.
Scott and excuse me. What I mean, she
Ooh,
looks
you
just like
said Scott and Jean. Look, it's even
did.
in the notes.
It's even in the notes.
You had to move on, Jeremy.
I'm sorry, I can't let her go.
She's not Jean.
She's Jean. Scott and Sarah go over there to kind of see what's going down with Kilgrave. But yeah, it's sorry.
So this is when Scott comes over and Kilgrave is putting on his human makeup, and
That's
all the kids are all Stepford wives, like they're like playing piano and baking cookies, and like, yes, Father treats us ever so good.
Yeah, Taki is playing like this like long piano music that's really really funny, and here's the other thing that I don't get with these villains. So Scott walks in, Kilgrave allows him to come in, shows him that all of the kids are fine. And
reveals himself.
And then reveals himself, he snaps his fingers, and Taki just comes over with his wheelchair and just runs the fuck over Scott Summers. In one of my favorite scenes in this cartoon ever. I just love. He hits him so hard he flies into a brick wall.
It's really good. And it just makes no sense for Kilgrave to do that, because he presumably, like, Scott's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Like, he wasn't like, something's wrong. You know, he was just kind of confused by these kids being so nice to him. Like, maybe he would have come back later and investigated or something like that. But like, he just, Purple Man just needs to get to the chorus. Once they run him over, they put him face down in a swimming pool, and that's where the thing ends and begins, and it's really grim looking. Like, it's like, hey kids, Scott Summers is dead, floating in a pool.
It's and also you just threw him in a pool. Like, you're gonna have to clean that up later.
Yeah,
you're a supervillain. You don't have a thing to like a river to throw him down. That's going to take him to the bay.
To throw him into. Like, if you want him to die from drowning, you could also just make sure he dies like significantly earlier than that. Like, Rusty, take him out to the fire pit and set him on fire.
Yeah, I don't want to. And then purple eyes flash, and you're gonna. Okay, yes sir. Right away, Mr. Kilgrave. Done.
Torch him.
Kilgrave is the worst villain that we fought so far. That's fucking saying something, man.
He's really stupid.
He's really dumb.
Like, this is some of the worst villaining that we've seen on the show.
Of course, as Scott is dying, he does see Jean, and Jean comes down from the heavens and starts making out with him. And no, that's actually just Sarah trying to give him mouth to mouth. So
yeah,
good job, Scott.
Yeah. So Scott, at this point, Scott's awake, so he's gonna do superhero shit. At this point, He busts into the basement, frees all the kids. And they're about at this point, he decides to try to get a new wife again. Him and Sarah are about to make out when Kilgrave shows up in a helicopter.
Yep.
Which, like, for a little while I thought this was Taki's, like, had transformed his wheelchair into a helicopter, and I was way into it, but that's not the.
No, they did not. That did not happen, unfortunately, which is a real big bummer to me.
Yeah. Yep.
But no, and this is the problem, is that Kilgrave is part of the community. So even though they know, they've busted out these kids, right? Like, as soon as Scott woke up, he went and like just exploded a wall and went to the basement and got all these kids and left. Like, that was his plan. He worked really well without a whole team of people for once. When Kilgrave shows up at the orphanage, the problem is like, hey, like, how are we going to convince the public that this really nice guy that it has been, publicly nice, is this really bad guy? Oh, there's a reporter here, and now he's in a helicopter shooting the orphanage. Okay, that's easy. That's done. Like, it's just, why is there a reporter there, right? Like, what is?
Yeah. It's Kilgrave's whole thing is just like, if anything starts to go wrong at all, he just flips the table. Like, he doesn't, at this point, like, he immediately just is going to, like, I'm going to show up with a helicopter with guns and stuff and, like, just show my entire hand. And there happens to be reporters there. Even if there weren't reporters there, like, reporters would show up. It wasn't like these explosions were just going to go unnoticed. So, like, he just doesn't, he's very quick to give up, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he does succeed in exploding the entire orphanage and, have to go in there and save more kids from the fire. God, yeah, Kilgrave is such a dick in this episode, man.
Yeah. Well,
these are the tales of
he's not quite as like rapey as he can be, so at least he's got that going for him. It's weird that you think that like Kilgrave dealing with a bunch of kids somehow makes it better, because he doesn't, like, none of the sexual stuff comes up with him, which is great.
Yeah, that's I'm glad that they don't get into any of that stuff. And I mean, like it's always very, very creepy. Like that's always like the terrifying fear of Kilgrave's power, of making him do whatever he wants, or making you do whatever he wants you to do. That's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's a really gross power. Like I always like the idea of it, but like the one again with Preacher, which is not like as I've gotten older, there's some like problems with Preacher, but I loved it growing up. And one of the things is there's just no intersection with that. It just never comes up. Mm-hmm. Like the main character would never do that because he's, ostensibly the hero. Like you don't give villains mind control powers like that though, because then some shitbird writer is going to come along and be like, what's the most villainous thing? Sex stuff. And then just make it really gross. And then you run into stuff like Purple Man and the Mandrill and things like that. And it's just gross. So heroes having that power is interesting and good. Or like, non-hero villain dynamics. You can do that well, which like Preacher, for all Preacher's problems, like it does that well. I don't think the Purple Man has done that well, other than Alias, and Alias very specifically addresses and zags away from the sex stuff.
Yeah.
It says, it wasn't sex, it was worse. And it's like, well, like it's a little problematic for Brian Bendis to be like, what he did was actually worse than rape. Like, I don't really want to hear Brian Bendis say what is or is not worse than rape.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the.
So it's still not perfect. It's still. Did you ever read? He did. There's a Secret Wars. It was called Secret Wars. It wasn't really Secret Wars. That came around in like 2005 or something. That was about Nick Fury like getting a team of people to like take out Latveria, and it was not very good. And Brian Bendis wrote it. And there's this whole thing with Wolverine where Wolverine talks about having his memory erased from Nick Fury, and like there's this panel with Wolverine being like, he raped me. And like comparing having his memory erased to that. And it's like, it's so gross. And I was 25 and was like, that's fucked up, dude. Like Brian Bendis, I do not need to hear you say what is better or worse than rape. Like,
I don't think that, like, I'm not going to be someone that says, hey, this dude can't write a story about rape, but like, I don't care about people I care about dudes writing their opinions about rape. Like, and like 98% of the circumstances, like, don't at me about the 2% or whatever. Like, I don't give a shit. But like, for a majority of the people out there, I don't need your opinion pieces on this shit. Like, I'm just not going to read them.
No, it is too. It is, everything is gross about it. Like it is, the idea that like you're using this as a cheap, you're just using it as the nuclear option. It's just the worst thing. And so like, people would respond to that criticism and be like, well, they're not saying it's good. They're not making light of it. They're saying it's really bad, but it's inauthentic. Like it's not, this person doesn't have, and maybe, I don't know, Brian Bendis's history. Like it's possible that he has history with sex assault, but like, him making Wolverine compare mind control to it is not a respectful treatment of it, by any means.
We had to deal on my other podcast about Supernatural. There's an episode where this dude has mind control powers given to him by demons, and we're not going to go too far into that because you're going to hate it. But they present this one dude as kind of this happy-go-lucky guy that has this power, and he's like, but they clearly show him leaving this apartment building with this beautiful woman in the window, like waving at him, and then he meets a guy on the street, and the guy gives him his coffee cup, and then he like sees another dude, and the dude gives him the keys to his car. So he's clearly using this for evil. But the episode like presents this twin brother, the secret twin brother, who also has this power, who's real shitty about it. So like it's supposed to like make this other guy look good, and like the entire time I was like, that other guy is still a shitbag. Like he was still sleeping with people with this power. Like don't forget about this. Like there's different degrees of shitbags, but he's definitely a shitbag. He's definitely used this for badness. Like, and I really don't like.
Or sorry to cut you off. It's just like that's runs into, just because. As much as I'm sick of talking about it, it becomes a good example of a lot of problems. Like it's the Dark Souls 3 thing where like people try to get you to care about different shades of black. Like something is already past the terminal velocity for how shitty it can be, how bad it can be, how evil it can be. And then someone's like, what if it's a little bit more evil? If you want to play with those kind of shades, don't start out that evil.
Exactly.
It just, just to be like, what is blacker than black? Like, what is the darkest, evilest thing? And then it was even more evil. Like, if you set yourself up in that kind of arms race with your villainy, you're going to lose. You're going to come off like a clown because it's it just becomes silly at a certain point. And your characters that you're setting up as for comparison end up suffering as well. So.
And if you cared about if you actually write decent characters and you have like characters that the reader cares about or the viewer or whatever, like the characters that your audience cares about, then you don't have to put them in those dire positions to get your audience to care about them. Like you can put them in just somewhat troubling situations. They can just be threatened with their life, like with a gun, and like, oh shit, that's serious.
Because
you know what I'm saying?
Like in real life, that is the scariest shit. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
So like people can relate to that if they can relate to your characters, but it becomes kind of like it's a lot of it. I feel like even if it can't be traced to comics make a really good example of it being kind of the worst of it, because you have to do these events. You know, it's not enough for like just this to be like regular badness. We have to really sell issues. You know, it's sweeps week. We have to get really good ratings. Let's make somebody die. Let's make somebody do this very special episode. You know, and so transparent. It's such a marketing thing and not an artistic thing.
Yep.
For it, you know, that it's bad story construction.
That scaling up of threat and the conflict, like it just, you can't keep. It's just like capitalism. You can't keep making more money all the time. It's not possible. Like why do you want to do that? So
we're in late period conflict.
Exactly.
Like we, you know, like late period storytelling. Like,
but luckily, none of the TV show does this, so we don't have to worry about that at all.
No, it's just a little tangent on it. I mean, like it's worth talking about Purple Man. Do you think that tangent should serve as our spotlight on, and it can be about Purple Man?
Oh, we could do that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. We could do, because that's like Purple Man's main like thing. Like his only thing is the threat of like he can make you do what you want to, and so everybody's mind immediately goes to the worst thing.
Yeah, and in the comics, like in Alias and stuff, I haven't seen the show yet, and I still want to. So please don't spoil anything for me. But like, and I know you wouldn't do that. But I'm saying like on Twitter or anything if anybody wants to correct me. But like one of the things he does in the comic, like you can do that and make it not inherently gross. Like there's a part where he's in a restaurant and he wants to talk to somebody and concentrate, so he makes everybody in the restaurant stop breathing. So it'll be quiet, like absolutely silent while he does so. And it's like, that's fine. You know, like that could be like a character with like, you know, without mind control powers could do something very similar to that. It's not gross. You just don't have to go to that all the way like skeevy sex stuff, because you don't get anything for it. You know, it doesn't seem like that does not seem so much appreciably worse for narrative purposes than killing a restaurant full of people by making them asphyxiate. To me, it's just kind of more scandalous. Like you're trading on that. Like you're trading on the fact that people will be offended by it, and that sucks. You know, it's like some edgelord material.
It's the same reason they put boobs in Jason movies, right? Like they want the murder and the violence, and they also want like the sex to go with it. Like they, you know, because that's going to titillate, that's going to sell, that's going to do whatever.
Yeah.
And like nowadays, it really kind of just comes off as boring, and not specifically talking about anything specific, but like when I watch a show now, and there was a real egregious example of this on something I was watching the other day where like there was just this half naked chick in the show for like no reason whatsoever that I could ascertain. I was like, okay, who's watching this and thinking like, oh man, finally I can get to see a half naked chick on TV. I've been waiting for this. Like why? Like what does it matter? Did you know, I was at the bar the other day and we were watching soccer. The soccer game ended, and this drag racing thing, like official, like actual, like spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on cars drag racing thing, came on TV. Did you know that there's a chick that actually like walks in front of the car still, like, and then like close. They like still do that, Gary. I could not believe, like, I just was astounded. Like because I don't fucking watch drag racing on a regular basis. I have no idea. It just was popped up on the TV, like this girl walking by with the flag, like out of every single drag race movie you've ever seen, right? Like it's just ridiculous.
I knew they still do that in boxing. You know, I knew that there was still that thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that serves as a good character spotlight on Purple Man. So
yeah, and just kind of that you know, the whole thing, and like, you know, recognize, in case anybody's just like waiting for us to make this connection, a lot of these problems exist with Xavier too, right? So like Xavier can do this stuff too, and when we say like Xavier's shitty and talk about him being unethical with his powers, like that's what we're talking about. It's a thin, you know, having someone just be able to tell you what to do versus someone be able to go into your head and make you do it is not a very thick line.
No.
And it, you know, it's gross. You know, and it's kind of like credit to the comics. Like the comics deal with this kind of like repression and stuff a little bit in the Dark Phoenix saga. Mm-hmm. Like it's not great, but like they do kind of deal with this kind of, you know, the parable or reading, you know, the Phoenix saga and the Dark Phoenix saga as this woman and everyone kind of being scared and, you know, being in fear of her having kind of total agency of herself. You know, and having this kind of like that, like there's a read there. Like I've read essays about that. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time, so I don't have like the name of the thing, but like that's a common kind of analysis approach to these stories. And like the comics do kind of truck in this in a more mature way a little bit, you know, but the cartoon doesn't really, and this certainly doesn't.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I haven't watched the Dark Phoenix saga yet, part of this season, but I'm looking forward to see how similar that's going to be to the original comics, because it does get into some weird places, like, you know, when she gets kind of basically mind controlled by that other dude. Like, yeah, that's really creepy and gross too. So
yeah.
These are the tales of the
So anyway, so the helicopter is attacking. There are these reporters watching, and that's really it, right? Like that's kind of how it ends.
Well, the one last the stinger is that when Scott goes back to
well, he shoots the helicopter too, but then there's the other stinger. So like Scott defeats him because he's a superhero. Like
he has the power to destroy a helicopter with his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the point where Scott and Sarah are about to make out, and Scott says, "No, I feel like I can do more. I can help more on the X-Men." And I'm like, you really think that the team of superheroes needs you more than the team of mutant kids at the orphanage that just got shot up? Like, this is a bad decision. You're not a good superhero. You just want to go back to your friends. That's it.
Yep.
You just want to close your eyes and pretend Rogue is Jean Grey for 5 minutes. That's exactly what you're going to try to do.
You're like, you go find Mystique.
Yeah, right? Mystique. What's up? It's Cyclops. I have a favorite. It's not the one you're thinking of. Oh no, it's definitely the one you're thinking of. My bad.
Oh, you want the Logan special, huh?
The what? Never mind. He goes back to the mansion just in time for Cerebro to pick up a signal, and it's Jean Grey, and she's alive, and we get a good Jean right at the end.
Yep. So. Yep. It is Jean.
I do love Wolverine's face in that little pan that they do, and Beast behind him looking so fucking weird. Like, Beast looks so happy, and Wolverine just looks so conflicted. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. We can see kind of like Wolverine being used to like objects of his obsession dying because he's lived for so long. Like, I imagine that he would be kind of conflicted. Like, there's probably a tiny little like flicker of flame inside Wolverine that was glad she was dead. You know, because he didn't have to see her with Scott all the time. And he didn't have to deal with like unrequited love. Like, it was that option wasn't on the table, you know? I imagine, like, I mean, I'm sure that's not what the cartoon was going for, but like, there's a read there that makes sense, right?
Yeah, like if I can't have her, nobody can. And
yeah,
thank God
now
I don't have
can.
to. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you're Wolverine, like, there's no way you can stay on the X-Men when Jean and Scott get married. Like, if you're that much in love with the chick, like, you would have to fucking jet. Like, there's just no way. You'd have to go and be X-Force or. You know, really, Wolverine should go to this orphanage. He'd be great with these kids.
It would just be, it would just be super awkward when they eventually walked into, the danger room where he's just killing them over and over, like killing robot versions of them, like he does.
Oh man, Wolverine and creating robot stand-ins for his emotions and killing them.
Yep.
You want to get to the next episode?
Yeah. So again, just backload that spotlight. Next, we're going to be talking about Obsession. In Obsession, Archangel has become obsessed with destroying Apocalypse, who he blames for ruining his life. Meanwhile, Beast has developed a new device that could contain Apocalypse and allow the X-Men to defeat him. Will Beast's device work? This is very bad and inaccurate. Will Archangel become an ally to the X-Men?
Not even a question in the episode.
Or Archangel's hunger for revenge caused the destruction of both himself and the X-Men at Apocalypse's hands. Kinda.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences, and they don't mention the 1 mile long sentence ship. That's pretty much like the plot crux of this whole episode.
Yeah, that definitely comes up with the plan to capture Apocalypse, and Beast definitely falls in love with.
In this episode, 2.5 seconds, he's just totally falling in love with an AI. It's ridiculous.
If you like Bad Beast, this is Bad Beast.
This is great. Yes,
peak Bad Beast, man. Like, you got a blind girlfriend. Go to your blind girlfriend. Stop trying to mac on this robot. It's a lot like that Star Trek Next Generation episode where Geordi falls in love with the hologram.
And it's worse too. I'm going to drop an image in our Slack chat, but it's worse too because they've got Beast in like a get-up for most of the episode. Like, he's got like a backpack full of equipment that he's using that has glasses that go over his face. Like, he just looks so dorky this entire fucking episode.
It's an action figure variant.
Yeah. Absolutely that. Yeah.
It's very good. I actually do like this episode. We're making fun of it, but I think this is a fun episode. And I like that one of the things that it does, and I like it when X-Men, the cartoon, deals with fallout from previous things. Right? So, like, Archangel was kind of a dangling thread.
Mm-hmm.
But of course he's going to have like tons of PTSD and be like really damaged. And this actually immediately starts dealing with that. And I think that's cool.
So, for listeners that may not remember, way back in season 2, Apocalypse had formed a plan to convince mutants that he had a cure for their mutant gene, and instead of
Not
actually
genes.
it's just not genes. Instead of actually curing them, it turns them into his like horsemen of the apocalypse. So Warren Worthington, whose only bad mutant power was that he had dope wings and a hot girlfriend and a place in the fucking Swiss Alps somewhere.
Chalet.
Yeah, in his chalet up in the fucking Swiss Alps. He decides to go get this treatment, and he gets his cool feathery wings ripped off, and now he's all Days of Future Cat or Apocalypse, whatever. Archangel.
Yeah.
So he's all purple, and in this episode, he takes off his like hat and he's still got all of his blonde hair, which does that ever happen in the comics? Because I thought he was just like, I assumed that all of this process of turning into Archangel just removed all the hair on his body. And I don't know why. I don't know why I assumed that.
It depends. Like I think I've seen him in his blue body with blonde hair before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you could be forgiven for thinking he's bald. So like I think it depends.
Okay.
Depends on like who's drawing it. It starts off right with him, and we see what he's been up to since season 2, which is like pouring his fortune into people scouring the earth for stuff about Apocalypse, which like I think is kind of cool. Like they're finding like old hieroglyphics, they're finding like old manuscripts and stuff, and trying to find ways that he could be defeated. Which is kind of stupid, because if there were like ways he could be defeated, he'd probably be defeated.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a little too simple. Like I think a more complicated version of this would be like finding information on his origin, so then Archangel could find a way for could puzzle out a way for him to be defeated. But it's a cartoon, so they kind of paper over that step.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's looking for a big glowing weak spot, like a video game boss.
Yeah, he's hired these archaeologists. Oh, wow, that's not a word. Archaeologists. Archaeologist. He's hired these archaeologists to like bring up all this stuff and dust it off, and he's not been finding anything until this one dude just wanders up and is like, "Hey, I found a scroll."
Yeah,
here's a scroll. And it clearly defines the weakness as the exact same weakness as the Titans in Attack on Titan. So just go do that. Yeah. Get your 3D maneuvering gear, and go like attack him on the back of the neck. Which seems like a really weird oversight for a creature or for a mutant like entity that can change his size and form at will. So
yeah, and this is so if you're savvy, this is going to be Apocalypse.
Yep.
But I kind of I feel like they could have made him like wink or had his eyes glow or something like that, and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So for a kid thing, I think this is a decently done twist.
Mm-hmm.
So the X-Men have like this Apocalypse alarm that goes off. Apocalypse is going and attacking the Statue of Liberty.
Well, in an amazing string of events, right after he sees the scroll of weakness, another guy comes up to Warren and says, "Hey, I just saw Apocalypse. He's in New York."
yeah. So Archangel's Apocalypse alarm goes off. The X-Men's Archangel goes off.
Exactly. Yeah, there's multiple systems of alarms here.
It's a series of redundancies. So apparently, like Apocalypse is attacking the Empire State or the Statue of Liberty, or just hanging out next to it.
It really just seems like he's hanging out in the harbor, right? Like he was just in the water when Apocalypse or Archangel shows up.
During this are very hard to discern what Apocalypse's goals are during this, other than get Warren Worthington back.
Yeah, because which you would think that is not that big of a deal. Like they never really clearly tell you why Archangel is so important to Apocalypse, because you could just make another one. Like there's a lot of mutants out there. Not all of them have cool superpowers. You could just like do whatever you wanted to them.
You could give a human like metal wings and give him Archangel's powers, because they tore off his feather wings.
Yeah, you could give a human Warren's old wings and really fuck him up. Like, go deep, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, set him up with Warren's ex-chalet girlfriend.
Anything is better than like literally sitting in the water, sitting on the dock of the bay of New York, right?
just coming out of the fucking East Bay, just like stinking. So the X-Men come to go help this thing. And he's fighting. Apocalypse is fighting. Archangel. Archangel's not doing a great job. He just he keeps throwing these metal blades at Apocalypse, literally for the entire episode, hoping that like one of them is going to get through. It's never going to happen. And then we get into this kind of fun fight here.
Yeah, this is actually like the X-Men show up and it's actually a fun fight. Like the animation is pretty good. Like the action sequences are great. The X-Men do a relatively credible job of uniquely using their powers and subduing Apocalypse for unfortunately only about 0.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like they get him down, they've got like a chain across of him. They're using their powers together, so like Rogue is knocking him in the foot while another character is knocking him in the head to get him to go down. Wolverine is slashing up stuff or trying to slash up, but they can't really make a scratch on Apocalypse. So
no, they can't. Yeah, they can't get through him at all. So eventually, this kind of annoy Apocalypse until he leaves, I guess.
Yeah, that's essentially it. They were like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm leaving, and he just like literally goes into the sky.
Yeah, Apocalypse just leaves. So they go back to their base, and Rogue is like, Rogue has been involved in this Apocalypse stuff. So she's like, I understand. Like Warren's still out there. I get it. Like I was also a victim of this.
And more importantly, like at the climax of the last time we fought Apocalypse, she actually used her powers on an Archangel.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So she
knows.
Yeah, she knows that he's in there, and it's not just the the evil inside him or whatever. So
yeah, and the reason since she has that connection, she also knows Gambit's bullshitting when Gambit tries to talk her out of it because she's used his powers, taken his powers as well. Because he comes up, he's like, she's like, Warren's still in there, and he goes, he not in there, he now Léonge de Mort, now and forever. Like, it's really good.
Oh man, the Gambit,
Léonge de Mort.
The Gambit in this episode is good Gambit, Yuri. Like I love it. Oh man,
it is good Gambit. He could be like, he's not as his all-time skeeviest, but like it's not great. Like,
no, it's really not. And there's definitely a little bit of jealousy throughout all of this because
totally.
In one of the next scenes, Rogue is like kind of tending to Warren and like trying to wipe his head down with a rag or whatever. Like he's kind of brushing her off, and Gambit's at the door, like creepily staring at them having this conversation. He could literally just walk in and say hi, like it's his place.
I'm an X-Men too. I help you now.
I clean this infirmary. I can walk in here anytime I want.
Yeah, Gambit wash your feet. It just doesn't happen though. So like, he's just kind of cranking. And here's a thing that I'm going to say that's possibly controversial is that Gambit's totally right during this entire episode. Like he's right for the wrong reasons. But like he's I think this is meant to be a kind of a hero turn for Gambit, like showing him as being very insightful because Warren Worthington is fucking psycho. Like,
yeah, he's a crazy person, and we didn't talk about it, but at one point his archaeologist buddies were like, "Hey, we can only stare at this so much that we probably think nothing's there. We're leaving. We're out of here." And he's like, "No. Yeah. If you leave, I'm going to kill you." So he's Obsession is the name of the episode, y'all. Like it's there.
He's a supervillain.
Yeah, he's absolutely a supervillain.
Yeah.
He's
the horseman of death. Like he's not just any supervillain. Like he's the horseman of fucking death.
He's literally the horseman of death.
Yeah.
The X-Men have used their new Shi'ar technology to discover this ship and immediately think that it's a sentient ship.
This I have no idea what's happening here.
What
like,
it doesn't like what is this?
Beast just like immediately like, we know there's a mile-long sentient ship. It's alive and can talk to us. It will know how to kill Apocalypse. Like, and this comes out of nowhere. We're at 8 minutes and 20 seconds into the episode or so, and we've already had like a pretty lengthy fight, all this establishing stuff. Like they do not do the exposition necessary to make this work.
I had no idea what was going on. All I knew is that you could hear an audible hard on from Beast as soon as he knew there was a mile long sentient ship. Like there was a pop. Like there was a
It's very intense. There's again, this is being kind of a Gambit highlight episode as well. They're like, where do we hide something like that? And Gambit goes,
who knows? Deep pockets? Alert.
Or something like that. Like he makes kind of a joke about, it makes a joke about it and everything, but they're just like, we're going to put all our money on this ship. Like if there is an invisible sentient ship, it will definitely know how to kill Apocalypse.
Yep.
Like why? What are you talking about?
Well, and they and like Xavier even says like, oh, there's history going back for thousands of years about this ship that would appear in the sky, but this has to be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, this came out of nowhere.
If this ship is what you say it is, like Apocalypse already owns it. Like he's already got that shit covered. Otherwise, it would have killed him already. Like what the fuck is any of this?
Yeah.
But they form this plan and they rush in to get Rogue so that Rogue can help them with their plan and say that they've discovered this ship. And also Apocalypse is on the run. He's going a different direction. So they say, we're not going to attack him directly because we can't hurt him directly. And Archangel is having none of that shit. He's like, I don't have time to play at war, and just opens up the sky roof.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And just zooms out
the skylight window and just leaves. Why do you have a skylight window in there, Doc? Like, that's not a good place. Why is your medical bay on the top floor of the Xavier mansion?
It's real strange. I'm 90% sure it's not too. I'm sure that's been established somewhere else.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna bother looking up a diagram, but it's definitely not. Yeah. He said the top floor is definitely Storm's, like,
Yeah, that's her
thing.
Her atrium.
Yeah, her atrium thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it's super.
So Rogue chases after Warren, thinking like, okay, he needs my help. I can't just let him go out here alone. And then Gambit just disappears too, and to go after Rogue. So like they're already down 2 team members. Yeah.
Yep. So the rest of the team go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I just love that Gambit can fly a fighter jet, like in this universe. I love it so much.
Well, everyone can. It is a weird thing, but it's established in the next episode that Jubilee can as well.
We had a friend over this weekend, and she was telling us that she met this 27-year-old dude in New Orleans. She lives in New Orleans, and she met this 27-year-old, and she said he's a 27-year-old fighter pilot, and I was like, Monica, like, you can't believe a dude when he tells you he's a fighter pilot. Like, he's definitely not. She's like, no, I didn't believe him either until he showed me a picture of him in front of the plane, a picture of him in the plane. Then he showed me his military ID, and I was like, okay, maybe he was a fighter pilot, but seriously, don't believe anybody else.
I'm gonna need 3 forms of fighter pilot ID before I realize you're not just trying to flood the basement. Like,
yeah, that's definitely an easy one to avoid. But yeah, so the X-Men take off, and they arrive at the ship. And
there's the rest of because it's not everybody. I feel like there's some real missing X-Men in this because like Storm doesn't show up during this. I don't think
there's a line. I thought it was in this episode where they ask like where everybody else is, and Wolverine says something to the extent of like they're in Muir Island, poking at Jean like she's some sort of lab rat. Because Cyclops is gone, Storm is gone.
Yeah.
So I think this is a victim of our continuity thing, because we don't in the next 2 episodes after this we don't really see any Jean action either.
No, it's just
you like the Jean action, though, don't you?
It doesn't. You're right. Like I think that is what's going on. So like they're supposed to be dealing with her weird cocoon.
Yeah.
So ship team shows up, which is Beast, Wolverine, and who else is on the ship?
I have it in my notes as Cyclops. So I guess Cyclops is there. So
yeah. So there's 3 people on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And the ship is just kind of like, yes, I am a sentient ship. And Beast immediately is just like, oh no, my God, like this is literally what I've been fantasizing about my entire life. And kind of goes back and forth with the ship, kind of flirting with it. It's ridiculous.
It is 100% ridiculous, and he's like flirting with it is the answer there. Like he is actively flirting with this robot person.
Yeah,
that's not actually a person.
Spoiler: like when the ship dies at the end, Beast cries. You know what he didn't cry about? When he like left his blind girlfriend, who is a human.
No tears when Jean died either, Gary.
Yeah.
just want to chime that in. All he did was write some shitty poetry.
Man, I do not, or I actually totally do want to read his robot poetry, like the poetry that comes from this breakup.
Oh my God! Like this is where GLaDOS came from, right? Like some Eric Walpole found this poetry. It was like, I can do better than this.
Man, Beast, you're bad.
You're terrible, Beast. You're so bad. I don't like you.
So the ship is like, we can do a trap for Apocalypse, and he's like, indubitably. And then they create the trap, but it's actually a trap for the X-Men. Because of course it is, because this is Apocalypse's ship, which they fucking knew.
They just walk onto this ship. We didn't even talk about how they get onto it, by the way. Beast literally asks the ship, "Can we board you?" And the ship says, "Absolutely. Thank you for asking politely, Hank McCoy."
Absolutely, you can. Thank you for acquiring my consent.
Oh my God, this is so terrible.
It's weird and gross. So this just continues. So like Rogue and Archangel are flying, and Archangel, I don't know what this is to an end to. Like he's like, pledge to me your heart and soul. Like, give me your everything. And she's like, I guess like she responds like the way you should, what is he talking about? Like, is he trying to start like a miniature Horseman under himself?
Man,
he's gonna franchise.
He's so far gone, and maybe this is an example of that. But I don't even know what this would give him. Like,
well, that's the thing, right? Like, what does that mean?
He's like, "There's no time for half measures, Rogue. Give me your heart and your soul." And I'm like, "What? Who? Okay." Like, I followed you over here.
She's like, all right. Like, she knows that this is just talk, it's and just kind of like goes along with it. But I don't know what this means. It's not like he has a plan to use Rogue's powers that will put her in harm or anything. Mm-hmm. They just go up to Apocalypse and punch it and throw feathers at it, which is all they ever do to it.
Yeah, and Apocalypse does not. I mean, like, there's nothing happening there. Like, he quickly, just knocks these two dudes to the side. Gambit shows up and starts shooting at him with the jet, which is cool Gambit work, but like that doesn't do anything either.
No, he distracts them though. He was gonna like crush Rogue or whatever.
Yeah,
and Gambit saves her, which is great. So then we go into the ship. The ship helps Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine get out of the trap by essentially just giving them instructions that involve like cutting a hole out the door and jumping out real quick.
Yeah, none of this really made sense to me either. Like, it's because the ship is basically saying like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a trap that Apocalypse set for you, but here, let me help you get out of this trap." Which is,
well, it's a machine. Like, it can not know. It could be lying this entire time, but the fact that they instantly believe the ship, everything it says, is just so weird to me.
You're absolutely right.
If like I hated somebody and they had a robot, I wouldn't instantly trust their robot.
Hey, this guy built a robot. Do you want to talk to it? No.
Do you want to do everything it says? Like, no. Like, it should be speaking with Apocalypse's voice. Like, you should think of this as Apocalypse himself.
Warren shows up, who has chased Apocalypse here. Apocalypse shows up, number one. And Beast, like, redoes his trap, and the trap actually works. Like, it traps Apocalypse into this force field, and he can't get out. The idea being, like, we can't kill him, but now he can't leave here. So now we're just going to put food in there.
Trap him inside Beast's girlfriend.
Hopefully he doesn't just fill the thing up with shit. Like, hopefully he doesn't have to go to the bathroom. Like, the cleaning on this is going to be really weird. Like, that's going to be a little strange. But Warren shows up, or Archangel shows up, and he is pissed. He immediately starts attacking Apocalypse, which isn't working because he's, there's a force field around him. When he realizes the computer is creating the force field, he shoots the computer. Like, he blows up this console, and Beast is like, "Computer." Or no, I think doesn't Beast just call the ship the entire time and never bothers to ask the name?
Ship. Yeah.
Ship, are you still there?
Yeah, he's very upset. We should mention, and we forgot this, but when Archangel and Rogue are attacking Apocalypse, this is when he tries to attack his weak spot and finds out it's fake. Oh, so there's even less motivation for Archangel to be like, I need to get him out of this. He's back to square one.
Yeah,
like he doesn't need to get him out of this force field. It's also the part where they're doing that fight. And I don't think we mentioned this, just if people are experiencing the show vicariously through us. Most of these fights, other than this one inside the ship, Apocalypse has been the size of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Like he's been in giant mode, which is really cool. He also has this really baller line that I want to point out where, like, he keeps this whole time, he's trying to tempt Archangel back into the fold. Mm-hmm. And he says, there is no freedom from me. There is only freedom through me, which is some like cool, that's a badass line, I think.
Well, there's a line at the beginning too where he said, "Yeah, I may have made a slave out of you, but you're a slave of courage." Which,
yeah, that's a less good line.
That's a less good line. But like Apocalypse, what? I don't understand any of your motivations. I don't like. You've been around for thousands of years. There's literally hieroglyphics that are talking about you. Like, what? Why have you not figured this shit out by now? He's
as the best will in the world. Again, like, this is me going for my no prizes. He's trying to break Warren Worthington because we find out he leaked that, the weakness. Mm-hmm. He's trying to demoralize Warren Worthington enough to get him back. Like, if I can break his spirit entirely, and he's on a long enough timeline, him doing this over the course of a year isn't even a big deal. Like, I want this loyal servant. It will help me in my goals. So I think that's what's going on.
I think I would prefer to keep the 1 mile long sentient ship and not let the X-Men board it, as opposed to just get Warren, right? Like,
yeah, it's pretty silly.
This fight, the fight is actually pretty good, right? Like, once all of the animation here is actually really, really fun, and it's like people flying around, they're using their powers in really unique ways. Like, all of this stuff it's quality animation. Like, this is a good time to watch this stuff. I'm enjoying watching this.
The fight in the next episode we're doing with the Iceman episode is my favorite fight in the series so far.
Yeah,
it's really, that fight's really good, and like the Cassidy Heat fight's good too, but that one is excellent as well.
But there's a point where he throws Rogue on top of Gambit, and Gambit, with the perfect opportunity, Rogue is sitting in his lap with the perfect opportunity to make some sort of comment. What does he do, Gary?
He says, "It's about time you laid off that fried chicken, Cher."
He calls her fat. He calls her heavy.
About time you lay out that fried chicken, Cher.
He negs her, Gary. That's so fucking frustrating.
He definitely gives her a neg, and not of like Rogue is not fat. Like not that would make it okay, but like it's it makes it sillier. And this is the whole episode. He's been like, I'm going to get in on a jet to try to save you. I'm trying to save you from Archangel. Like, it just makes it it invalidates like all of the kind of good or romanticness of what he was trying to do before.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't think that's actually the text, the implied text. I think it's just the writer's making a cheap joke.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a Saturday morning cartoon. Like, it's hard to realize like this is not for 35-year-old dudes like sitting in their room recording podcasts. That's not what this podcast.
We're totally past our sell-by date on this shit.
Yeah.
So it was just a joke for kids to think it was funny.
Yeah, but still, like,
and learn about shitty gender roles and bring them into their regular life and be shitty boyfriends, and it was just a joke to make the world worse.
Gambit did it. It's got to be good. He's a superhero.
Yes.
Smack him on the back of the hand.
No.
So,
but yeah, it's a real, it's a thing.
Throughout this entire process, like, Apocalypse has control of the ship, and as he's fighting the X-Men, Beast kind of skitters away because Ship, as she is known, didn't even bother giving her a name, or giving it a name. Whispers to Beast and like, hey, I think I've got a way to get Apocalypse's control away from him. So tells him to go do these things, and like he's clicking on stuff, and it's very, very bad. Like, all of the animation, none of that stuff is very good at all. He's got his full like geek uniform on. It's really, really dumb. But
there's a part where like when they do this, when the ship says something like, "I'm feeling something I've never felt before, satisfied," or something like that. Like, there is an explicitly sexual orgasm line.
It's
that happens.
Really weird. Who has the robot fetish in the early 90s, man? Who's that guy?
Who wrote this one?
Or that person? Like, who's that person? Like, I'm not going to rule out that it could be a girl with a robot fetish, but
just to make it even grosser, it's not like a human on robot. It's Beast on robot. Like, there's no human element to this pairing. Like, it is just a monster and a computer. And like, what if a monster and a computer fucked? Like, this is some freaky shit. This is the future that liberals want, man. Like,
absolutely.
Like,
just anything can fuck anything and marry anything anytime they want to.
Yeah, where's the line? You get Beast fucking a computer. You get Longshot fucking a cape. Anywho, so they're still trying to fight Apocalypse. They can't. The fight continues on. Yeah. Morgan Worthington's being pretty obnoxious and not getting through. His metal feathers will never do it. Like, he's never going to get through Apocalypse. But the ship goes into this self-destruct mode, kind of like trapping everybody. Like, everyone's going to be trapped. There's a really great little scene here where like Gambit tries to charge the wall that he's trapped in. He can't. It won't take the charge, which like that's not how that works, I don't think. But then pan over to the other side of the wall.
And he does give the camera a good Jim look after that happens. He's like, huh?
Yeah. It pans over to the other side of the wall, and Wolverine is clawing the wall, and Rogue is flying above him, punching it really fast. Mm-hmm. And it looks like she's riding on his shoulders. Like,
yeah,
it's really good. Like, and they're just like hyper punching it, but they can't get through. Eventually, Beast gets shipped to save them, though.
Yeah, it opens up the whatever, and like they can get out. Throughout all of this, Apocalypse has sealed himself in some weird looking space pod, and he gets shot out into space, like away from the Earth, as the ship just crumbles. So they're presumably not hurting anybody or causing any major environmental damage, because nobody talks about that. But
yeah,
it just blows up in the sky and then falls, and then all of the X-Men leave because that's what happens.
And Beast cries. Beast like literally sheds a bunch of tears about his like robot shit. I keep saying robot, but like that implies a degree of anthropomorphication. Like, there's no, it's a space, it's a panel. Like, it's like literally like a sci-fi panel that he's fallen in love with.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. Like, there is no like you said, there's no like body that he sees ever.
Yeah,
like it's literally a panel or like a wall thing, and then the panel at one point gets blown up, like we mentioned, and it's still talking to him. Like, where's this? Oh,
and like there's no part of him that was just kind of like, here, jump on this flash drive, like it like, I don't know, it just seems like if you were really in love with this thing, I understand that like Apocalypse is about, so you don't have tons of time to think it through, but like This is a weird episode of this show, Jeremy.
It really is. It's bizarre, and it's not necessarily bad. Like all of this is like
no. The action is extremely good, and like again,
it's all well rendered. Like it's all really good, but it's just so wacky, and like it doesn't even really feel like an X-Men story. Besides that they get to fight Apocalypse for a little bit. Like it just feels like and some of these episodes, especially the one-off episodes that don't have 5-parters or whatever, feel like that sometimes. Where it's just not even, it just doesn't even feel like it has anything to do with the X-Men. Like what is like they don't even get into a supervillain plot. Like their plot is just Warren is angry.
Apocalypse isn't doing anything.
I know.
Like, I mean, again, like his plot, if I want to be kind, is to tempt Warren back in, and it's like the X-Men helping out their buddy Warren, who is the Angel of Death. Like is not, he was not an old X-Men in this continuity. We find out who the old X-Men are in this.
And we should mention too that after Apocalypse goes into space, Warren does not take a breather. He doesn't like, oh well, that's fell for a little bit. I can finally go back to my chalet for a little while. No, he's still just as angry.
I'll follow him to the ends of the earth, through perdition's fire, until he breathes blood and rolls over. Split, broken, finished!
Dude, he's in space. Take a break. Like, you can't go into space.
Like, Warren in space is what I want. And Rogue is still kind of sympathetic. All that stuff I think is fun and fine, right? Like, sure. I like that. I really do like that it's dealing with the fallout of their things. Like, one of the things this cartoon does really well is that, like, things don't wrap up neatly, in general. Like, it's like, oh, like, there's still problems. Like, they have to deal with, the psychological effects of this terrible thing. Cyclops has to deal with his wife, his fiance dying. Like, things like that. Like, I really like that.
Yeah.
That's very good. It is just, I don't know.
It's goofy. It's real goofy is the problem.
It's goofy, and like the actual like mechanics of the plot are usually so bad. Like it's just like the villains don't have any motivations. Like nobody's plan to make sense. All the X-Men turn into idiots who forget their powers like instantly.
Yep.
At
least Rogue punches things. Like that's a. I don't think Gambit charged up anything in this entire episode. He just used a fighter pilot and then called Rogue fat. Like that was it.
Yeah. So they are like, these are good. I like both these episodes for those reasons I mentioned, but they are also ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed.
And this is going to go for the next episode we do too, where it's two other, one-offs. Yeah.
And but that's going to do us for today. I think I'm pretty much done talking about those two episodes for the rest of my life.
I don't have anything else to say. All these elements come back as well. I think we do get Scott's Orphanage. I know we get more Apocalypse episodes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this is not the last we've seen of him.
No, not at all. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everybody for subscribing and downloading all the other episodes. We really appreciate it. Pretty much the home of the podcast is daysoffuturecast.com. That'll have links to social medias and our schedules if you want to watch along with the episode and all of that stuff. That's really, I guess, I don't really have a lot of bad. Oh, no, wait. We got to go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a month since we've recorded this podcast, so I kind of forgot the outro a little bit.
No, it's quite all right.
But yeah, if you like this podcast and want to support more work by Gary and myself, go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Just a few dollars a month gets you access to Slack and gets you episodes early. You guys just are kind of in the process of redoing that right now, which is pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to a lot of the changes that you guys are doing. So,
and some of them you hate. I get it.
Yeah, and two of them I hate. Which are they? Leave me an iTunes review to find out.
Just a 5-star review will let you know. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff, and the response has been almost entirely like kind and good.
Good.
With a couple of notable exceptions of real assholes. Which is, I mean, even like I'd almost like, as long as there's only one or two of them, I kind of prefer that because I think it's funny. There's some real like it's been a good opportunity for like fuck you. So that's fun. But most people have been very nice. At the time you're hearing this, there probably is not still time to do our survey where you can win Steam gift cards and help us decide what. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. If you do have ideas for the network, specifically for our Patreon, we're looking for cool ideas for rewards and cool ideas for milestone goals. Hit us up. If we can't do it through the survey, you can always shoot us an email. I'm at Gary@Duckfeed.tv, or you can hit me up on Twitter at GaryBuh. Where are you at on Twitter, Jeremy?
I'm JG Greer on Twitter. Really easy to find. And the podcast is DOFC Podcast. And, open DMs there as well. So if you just feel like send us a message. At the end of every season that we cover, we're going to be doing feedback episodes. So if you want to ask us questions or give us prompts or just tell us who your favorite X-Man is, you can do so via the DM or via the contact form at daysoffuturecast.com.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's probably about it.
That's it. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, good night.
And good luck.
Yeah, these are future casts on this.